From Washington, this is VOA News. Ukrainian parliament passes measure offering amnesty to protesters. Egypt to put 20 Al Jazeera journalists on trial. I'm Ray Kouguell reporting from Washington. Ukraine's parliament approved a measure offering amnesty to protesters arrested during anti-government demonstrations, but only if they abandon the buildings they have seized. Lawmakers passed the measure Wednesday night, but the opposition in Parliament opposed the move. Demonstrators took to the streets in November when President Viktor Yanukovych backed out of a trade deal with the European Union in favor of closer ties to Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin promised Wednesday that even if the opposition does come to power in Ukraine, Moscow will make good on its pledge of a $15 billion loan to Ukraine, along with substantial natural gas discounts. International mediator Lakhdar Brahimi says he does not expect to achieve anything substantive in the first round of Syrian peace talks, ending Friday, but that he hoped for a more productive second round beginning around a week later. Earlier, the Syrian government and the opposition delegation attending the talks agreed to use the Geneva communiqué as a basis of discussions, although they are differing on how negotiations should proceed. The document defines the stages needed to end 3 years of fighting and create a transitional government. Western news organizations say al-Qaeda-linked militant groups have seized control of some of Syria's oil and gas resources and are using the revenues to finance their operations. They say the Islamic State of Iraq and al-Nusra are among groups that have carried out the practice, which in some cases included selling oil to the Syrian government. President Obama is on a 4-state trip to amplify economic themes from his State of the Union address. White House correspondent Dan Robinson reports.
The traditional road trip after a State of the Union address first took the president to a Washington suburb in Maryland, where he spoke at a Costco store. Standing in front of about 36 workers and the backdrop of an American flag Wednesday, he renewed his call on Congress to give America a raise by increasing the minimum wage.
Americans overwhelmingly agree nobody who works full-time should ever have to raise a family in poverty. And that is why I firmly believe it's time to give America a raise.
Mr. Obama wants the federal level raised to $10.10. Dan Robinson, VOA News, the White House.
President Obama later visited a U.S. Steel Corporation plant near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to discuss his proposal to create a new savings program for companies that do not offer retirement plans. National Intelligence Director James Clapper says terrorists have, in his words, gone to school on U.S. surveillance efforts following Edward Snowden's information leaks. Mr. Clapper told a U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee because of the former National Security Agency contractor's leaks, terrorists have changed their communication methods, making the intelligence community's work more difficult. Icy chaos gripped the U.S. South Wednesday as an unusual snow and ice storm forced thousands of children to shelter in schools overnight, leaving thousands of motorists stranded. At least 5 deaths in Alabama and 2 in Georgia were blamed on the weather. Egypt's top prosecutor says it will be putting 20 journalists from Al Jazeera on trial on charges relating to terrorism. It would be the first such trial of reporters since the government declared the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist group last month. VOA's Elizabeth Harrod has more from Cairo.
The chief prosecutor's office says 16 Egyptian and 4 foreign reporters are facing charges of belonging to a terrorist group or helping spread false news that instills terror. All work for the Qatar-based Al Jazeera network, which the Egyptian government and many of its supporters accused of backing ousted President Mohamed Morsi and his Muslim Brotherhood base. Al Jazeera has denied the accusation and has repeatedly called for the release of its staff, saying the charges against them are totally unfounded. While not named in the statement released Wednesday, Canadian reporter Mohamed Fahmy appears to be the chief defendant. He was not counted among the foreigners, as he also is identified as an Egyptian national. Elizabeth Tharrett, VOA News, Cairo.
The government of South Sudan released 7 of the 11 political detainees whose arrest became a sticking point at peace talks with rebels. The 7 men were released Wednesday and taken to Nairobi under an agreement between South Sudanese President Salva Kiir and Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. I'm Ray Kouguell, VOA News. Details on these and other stories at voanews.com.